What up, nomads? In this video, I'm sharing my packing list and recommendations for a trip I took just 2 weeks ago to Switzerland. Let's go. So first, some context on the trip. I went to Lucerne, which is in the German part of Switzerland, about an hour south of Zurich. I was there for 4 days in September, and it drizzled the entire time. If I hadn't been there for work, I would have been so disappointed. But truth be told, most of the trip was spent in meetings anyway. So weather, rainy and about 15 degrees Celsius or 59 Fahrenheit. In terms of vibe, I mentioned it was a trip for work, but I work in tech, so it's super casual. As far as activities, I knew based on location that there was a good chance we'd go for a small hike or at least a walk outside, weather permitting. For all my inclement weather tips, check out my video on how to pack for the rain. Even though it was casual, I still wanted to go for my usual business trip vibe, which is professional, somewhat understated, and practical. When it comes to bad weather, it's really safest to pick footwear and outwear first. So, raincoat, check, and umbrella, check. For fun, if it weren't raining, I probably would have brought this wool blazer or maybe a cool leather jacket just to have a little bit more style. But because it was chilly and rainy, I stuck with my raincoat and a small puffy vest to add warmth. I layered this under my raincoat for warmth, but if it hadn't been raining and I wanted to feel sporty, I might have packed just this as well. For footwear, I'm gonna share some advice that I did not follow myself, but I still think is worth mentioning. I'd recommend for Switzerland, packing a waterproof hiking shoe. For a casual hike, you could absolutely go for a pair of Vessi waterproof sneakers, and for something more uneven terrain like, opt for a more robust shoe with light support or even ankle support. You don't have to go for a full hiking boot, but something to secure your foot and prevent rolling your ankle. So what did I choose instead? 2 pairs of boots. First, these Gore-Tex Converse boots that are sort of the hybrid of a shoe and a boot. And I think they just go with a lot of things, but also they're weatherproof and they're decent for a small hike. So I felt confident that I would have my needs covered with these. Then I also wanted to have something a little bit more polished, but still quite sensible and versatile. So I opted for these patent croc effect booties from Vagabond, and they just have a side zipper and a really, really low heel. Probably couldn't even consider this a heel. So these were kind of my more dressy option. If it hadn't been raining and I wanted more of a street style sneaker, I might have brought my Converse sneakers or my Sambas. But with my 2 pairs of boots and really knowing that I would spend most of the time inside, I had my needs covered with the 2 boots. Moving on to clothing. With rainy weather, I didn't want to wear anything too heavy or too clingy. I also recommend pants made from technical fabrics for rainy and cooler weather. So merino wool, nylon blends, and I also look for outdoorsy brands, fitness brands, and even golf brands for these types of clothes. You can usually tell pretty quickly if a brand has good designers who are creating stylish trousers, but with the same high quality fabrics and thoughtful design elements you would expect from these more technical brands. So that's always what I look for, is technical brands, but that have kind of a very stylish eye to them. These are perfect for city trips in my opinion. So what did I shortlist? Well, from my own closet, I have a couple of pair of trousers from Kit and Ace that are made from this technical water repellent fabric. And this pair, I think, was designed specifically for people who bike because they have a little snap here so you can make sure that your pant leg doesn't get caught in anything. But I also find this practical if you don't want your pants to drag on the floor or if you're afraid that they might get a little wet. So these are some of the small details I was talking about. For other trousers, I brought these Tibi Stella cargo nylon pants. I feel like these could be worn all year round with like some warm leggings underneath, but I just wore them as is. And I just think they're a really cool casual cut in a casual fabric, but with some kind of smarter details, and having them in black also makes them feel a little bit more chic. So I felt like this was also a great cross for like technical fabric that's rain repellent, but not compromising too much on chicness and going for like a true zip off hiking pant as an example. So one brown pair, one black pair so far. I did also want to toss in like a more casual jean, but I have been really loving these oversized 90s carpenter pants. And so I brought these for no other reason than I just think they're really cool and I'm really into them right now. So let's move on to tops. I think I'm going to maybe slightly disappoint you in that I kept it extremely simple and just packed a couple of t-shirts and tank tops and a couple of sweaters so I could mix and match. And I brought this alpaca brown sweater, I brought this sweatshirt that was black, and this cashmere sweater in like a sandy beige. And then I also wanted at least one option that I could wear out to maybe a wine bar or to a nice restaurant just in case. So I packed this cardigan that can be worn alone, is probably a little sexy for a business trip, but over like a bodysuit or a tank top, I just think it gives a little bit of a smarter look than maybe like a sweatshirt, for example. So this was my color scheme. I kept it very simple. If I wanted to go with a pop of color, I probably would have added this to my list, but honestly, I didn't think of it until now. Or maybe like a red pop of color, because that's also just something nice that can kind of go with brown, also go with black and denim, and is versatile. But to be honest, this was totally enough for me and exactly what I needed for this trip. I did have a 7-hour red eye to take to Switzerland, and on the way back it was an 8-hour flight. So I wanted to make sure that I had some options that were comfortable for the plane. So on the way there, this was my plane outfit. These track pants and this cashmere sweater. And then I changed into the cargos at the airport before I got picked up by my colleague. But on the way back, I totally wore these again. I think I wore them with my sweatshirt and yeah, called it a day. If you saw my LA Pack With Me video, you'll see that the pendulum really has swung back to my dark, neutral, simple looks. And this is actually a pretty boring capsule, but I have essentially a couple of combinations of black, brown, navy with a pop of red with my travel outfit. And again, if I'd wanted to add some color, maybe go for like a neon, a little bit more red, but I didn't feel it was super necessary for such a short trip. For accessories, I also packed a wool hat, a large scarf, and 2 bags, both nylon, again, because it was gonna be pouring the entire time. So I brought my Le Pliage, which is my go-to for rainy weather, and then this banana bag from Uniqlo, which everyone owns, but it's like actually fantastic. So these were my 2 accessories that I packed. And yeah, I brought my jewelry, that was pretty much it. Yeah. So do I have any regrets? Well, I probably could have put a little bit more style into my choices and like tried a little bit harder. But really the only true regret that I have, or only mistake I made, which is actually kind of stupid, is that with these cargos that I love, I like to wear them a little bit low-waisted. But then when we were out and about walking near the mountain, I didn't want them to drag on the floor. So I was like hoisting them up, and I did bring a belt and I was wearing a belt, but I was probably needed to add a hole to the belt to make them even smaller. And I think just if I tried them on with that in mind before packing them, I would have punched another hole in my belt. And instead I was in my hotel room using my tweezers trying to gouge a hole into them. So one regret is that I didn't have a tight enough belt for the pants so that they wouldn't drag on the floor. But normally I actually kind of like when they puddle on the floor. So, I mean, you live, you learn, right? All in all, it was such a short trip and I had a very good idea of what we were doing and what our schedule was, what the weather was, what the vibe was. So I felt pretty confident about my packing list. The only variable was I wasn't sure if we were gonna go out for dinner or drinks one night. So I made sure that I had at least something that I would feel comfortable wearing to a nicer establishment. But in those situations, I actually prefer being a little underdressed, but dressed in an interesting and fashionable way than overdressed in like a cheap or expected way. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's more of a mood thing really, and the confidence to pull off something that's maybe a little bit more edgy. Anyway, this is my 4-day business trip to Switzerland in rainy fall weather, packing capsule. I hope some of the tips maybe spoke to you or will be useful for you for an upcoming trip. Once again, thanks for watching and happy travels. Thanks for watching this video until the end. For more content like this, make sure you subscribe to the Capsule Suitcase and turn on notifications so you get all the fresh content as soon as it comes out. Thanks for supporting this channel. Happy travels!